Today I'm choosing to do an in-office video, mostly because of the atrocious weather we've been having. But I thought I'd take the opportunity to talk a little bit about the software that I use, the tools that I use for photo editing, what I use, when I use it, what I use it for, and what I think of it. And that's going to include 3 different software packages, different software suites: Adobe Lightroom, Adobe Photoshop, and Topaz Labs. And the Topaz Labs is one that does seem to divide opinion a lot, so I'll let you know what I think about it. I hope you'll enjoy the video. If you do, and you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe before you go. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. So yes, I am in the office, and I was going to do an in the field video, go out and do some photography, but we've had the most appalling unseasonal weather here. Storms, heavy rains. It's caused flooding in some of the towns, it's caused flooding in some of the countryside, public transport issues. There's been advisory warnings about what to do if you get trapped in your car in flood water. It's a bit of a two-edged sword, because although the weather has been causing problems with the flooding, we really do need the rain here. It's the first proper rain we've had for about a year, or over a year. Just very unseasonal. We don't normally get it in May. I could have gone out still, but in general the kind of advisory is if you don't need to be going out and travelling and doing stuff, then don't. So I thought the sensible thing is, stay safe, stay at home, and make a video about software and tools. Now, as I said in the intro, I'm going to talk about Adobe Lightroom, which is what I use for probably 90% of my photo editing. I'm going to talk about Adobe Photoshop and when I use that in addition to Adobe Lightroom. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about the Topaz Labs suite. Now that's actually 4 software packages. The original ones were Sharpen AI, Denoise AI and Gigapixel AI. And more recently they've started to bundle all of the functionality for that together in one package called Photo AI. I think it's called Photo AI. So I'll tell you what I think about that, and it's an interesting one, that is, because it divides opinion so much whenever I see the adverts for it. But let's start off by talking about Adobe Lightroom. Now I should say at this point, I am not being paid to promote Adobe products or any of the products that you're seeing here. The packages that I've got are bought and paid for by me. There's no affiliate links or anything like that. I have Adobe Lightroom and Adobe Photoshop under the Creative Cloud package, which means I pay a monthly fee for it. I know there are lots of people who object to paying a monthly subscription for software, and I understand that, but I also feel that given how powerful they are as a package, and given how they have been updated and advanced and enhanced even in the last few years, I don't actually object to paying the monthly subscription for it. But if you do, there are other packages out there. I can't compare them because I haven't used them. So let's talk about Adobe Lightroom. 90% of my editing probably is done in Adobe Lightroom. I've always used it for my tonal adjustments, global tonal adjustments, and even selective tonal adjustments, where I can maybe use a radial filter or a gradient, linear gradient, or the brush tool to apply changes to only some parts of the image. What we're seeing in the last 2 or 3 years is much more advanced masking capabilities coming into Lightroom. Things that in the past you had to do in Photoshop, you can now do in Adobe Lightroom. Things like being able to select the sky and apply changes to just the sky, and object selection as well, being able to select a subject and apply changes to just that. I've always used Lightroom for all of those features. I've also always used it for stitching panoramas because it does a really, really good job. Now, I did a whole video about shooting panoramas last week and trying out a bit of kit as well. If you haven't seen that video, I'll stick a link to it up there now. But I always use Lightroom for stitching panoramas, and provided I've done the in the field bit right, they work beautifully. You can also use, and I do use, Adobe Lightroom for blending exposures. So if I've shot bracketed exposures to deal with high contrast scenes, quite often using the HDR merge facility in Adobe Lightroom will just seamlessly produce a new raw file containing all of that dynamic range data, enabling the recovery of more highlights and more shadows than would be possible in a single exposure without problems. So there's a lot that you can do in there. Now, for some HDR or exposure merging, where you want to be more selective about what's being applied to different areas of the image, you're going to want to go into the next tool, which is Adobe Photoshop. But Lightroom continues to grow, continues to expand with new features, and it only becomes more and more powerful with every update as far as I can see. Although it does occasionally mean relearning where certain features are when they change it. Adobe Photoshop I always use in conjunction with Adobe Lightroom. So everything is done in Lightroom first, and it's only certain things that I do in Adobe Photoshop. The exception to that is focus stacking, because normally when I do a focus stacked image, I would do the focus stacking. I did some basic tonal stuff in Lightroom, and then do the focus stacking using layer masking in Adobe Photoshop, and then finish off the final image again in Adobe Lightroom with the changes that I want to make. The other things that I would use Adobe Photoshop for is, removing stuff from the scene. I try not to do it too much, but cloning stuff out is easier in Photoshop than it is in Lightroom. You can do it in Lightroom, but Photoshop allows you to make, select specific areas very precisely, and has things like content aware fill and other bits and pieces. And there's even a new fill feature in the beta version of Photoshop that I haven't had a chance to play with yet, but I'll have a look at it at some point. I can't remember exactly what it's called. It's not the content aware, it's kind of an AI fill, but it's a bit more ethical, I think, than some of the AI fill stuff that you see out there. I'll stick the name of what that feature is on here, but I said I haven't had a chance to play with that yet, but I will do at some point in the future. What about Topaz Labs? Now, I bought the Topaz Labs software suite about a year ago, and at the time it was Sharpen AI. The name makes it obvious what it does. It's a sharpening tool. Denoise AI, it's for getting rid of noise. And Gigapixel. Gigapixel is for resizing images. You can make images bigger, and it uses AI to, I guess, fill in the blanks to create a bigger image. Now, I see Topaz Labs advertised a lot, and I mean a lot. There's lots of photographers obviously either getting paid or getting incentivized in some way to advertise it on Facebook, because I think every day I'll see multiple adverts on Facebook for Topaz Labs software, and it always generates very divided opinions. On the one hand, you've got people who say, you shouldn't use this stuff, learn to get a sharp image, or learn how to use your camera properly, or whatever it might be, get it right in camera. And other people who will say it's absolutely fantastic, and you can save any image no matter how many mistakes you've made on it. And there's a few people who sit in the middle and will say, it's okay for some things but not for others. I don't get involved in those conversations normally, but I do sit in the middle on this. When it comes to Sharpen AI, I will quite often try sharpening an image in Lightroom first, and then take an unsharpened version into Topaz Sharpen AI and play around with that. And you do have to play around with it. Just using the default settings normally doesn't produce the result that you want, but playing around with the settings in it, sometimes Topaz Labs will do a better job than I could do in Lightroom, or indeed than I could do in Photoshop using unsharp mask or using high pass filters and layer masking. So sometimes Topaz Labs does a better job, sometimes it doesn't. And generally speaking, I'll play around with both if I think I need to and pick whichever one I think looks best. Denoise, I don't have a lot of noisy images, but I have used it on a few when I've shot at higher ISOs, when I've got noise in the image. And up until recently, I would have said Topaz Labs normally does a better job of denoising an image than the denoise facility in the noise reduction facility in Adobe Lightroom. Now, having said that, Adobe Lightroom has a new denoise facility itself, which is an AI-based denoise, which looks very, very good. I haven't tried it yet, but it looks like it's a strong competitor and may well do as good a job, if not a better job, than Topaz Labs. I don't know. When I had a chance to play with it, I'll let you know. Gigapixel, I've had some fantastic successes with Gigapixel taking low resolution, or not so much low resolution, but small megapixel images, like an 8 megapixel image or 12 megapixel image, and blowing it up to 24 megapixels or 30 megapixels. And in some cases, it's done a much better job of increasing the size of the image than using the equivalent resizing capabilities in Adobe Photoshop. But not on every image. On some images, Adobe Photoshop actually does a much better job of increasing the image size. So again, and I don't do it very often, certainly not on landscapes, but maybe on wildlife or something like that, I might have captured a picture of a bird where the bird is pretty small in the frame, and I've blown it up, and it's worth trying it in both. So I'll take one version and resize it in Photoshop, and I'll take another one and resize it in Gigapixel and see which one looks the best. It does seem to work better for things like wildlife and buildings and city scenes than it does for landscapes, which is, I guess, where the AI, maybe there's more information out there for the AI to work with. All of the Topaz Labs suite, Sharpen AI, Gigapixel AI and Denoise AI, seem to be being combined into a single software package now, which is Photo AI. And I've got to be honest, I'm not so keen on it. It feels harder to work around and do only the bits that I want it to do, but I haven't played with it very much, so maybe it will grow on me. I'm interested to see what happens with things like Adobe Lightroom over the next 12 months. They've introduced this new denoise function. Are they going to come up with a new sharpening function, which may well take, may well produce much better results in all cases than Topaz Labs? I don't know. If you're going to ask me which software you should get for photo editing, I would always recommend Lightroom and Photoshop, providing you don't mind and don't object to paying a subscription. It's updated regularly with new features, both of those packages. It's not massively expensive every month, and there's a mass of information out there on YouTube and on forums and all over the internet in terms of being able to find out how to do things if you don't already know. So if you want to do something different in Lightroom that you've never tried before and you're not sure how to do it, I pretty much guarantee there's a YouTube video out there that will show you exactly how to do it. And for that reason, I think there is a strong argument in favour of it compared to some other software packages. But I must stress, absolutely, I haven't used a lot of these other software packages. So all those people out there now that are using, I don't know, Affinity Pro or Capture One or whatever it might be, who are, you know, throwing things at the screen and telling me I'm talking rubbish, you're probably right, because I haven't tried them, so I don't know. But my recommendations for most people is Lightroom and Photoshop. Topaz Labs, download the free trial and give it a go if you want to see what it does. The free trial watermarks the images, but it gives you an idea of what it's capable of, and it's not massively expensive to buy like the 1 year license for it. You can still use it after that year's license is up without paying any more, but you just don't get any updates if you don't renew it. I'm hoping my next video will be out in the field, assuming the weather has improved a bit and it's okay to go out. For those of you that have been watching the channel for a while and have seen some of my in-office videos before and are wondering, where have my pictures gone? Keep watching. In 2, maybe 3 weeks time, I'm going to do kind of a channel update, because there's some things that are going to be changing, which will change what's going on in the future of my photography. And I'm going to be sharing that with you in a video, as I said, in about 2 or 3 weeks time. In the meantime, if you've enjoyed this little discussion, or if you've seen some of my in the field videos and you want to make sure you don't miss out on any more and you haven't already subscribed, now would be a good time to hit that subscribe button. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave me a comment, hit the like, hit the share, and as always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch, so thank you very much. And until the next video. Bye.